what advice do you give people that you mentor on diving into that purpose aspect? Because I really do agree with you. Like, that's the most important thing to get right in all of this.
Yeah, I think like, look, the reality, the sort of like evolved opinion I have of this at this point is like, you know, you can find purpose in a lot of ways, right? And I think sometimes when you depart the military, which has been literally the entirety of your purpose, right? As like a human, right? Um, it can be like it's okay to like I get some purpose from my job. I get some purpose from my kids. I get some purpose from my spouse. I get some purpose from my church, right? Like I get some purpose from my friends and like the social groups that I'm in. I think like the reality is like you don't have to derive it all from one place, right? So then it becomes so it's like de-risk that a little bit, right? Because when you look at it that way, in my opinion, it seems insurmountable because you're just like, oh my god, this is like I have to. There's so much pressure to get it right because you're like expecting that same sort of thing, right? I think again, like this is I'm sharing like where I've solidified my opinions here. Maybe not the opinion I had at the time, right? But like, I think at this point, the thing I've come to realize is just like, hey, you got to figure out what's really important to you, right? And like everyone has kind of their own math equation here, right? And again, like this is where I go to like, there's no right answer. Somebody might want to be a banker, somebody might want to be a tech person, somebody might want to be a veterinarian, and like there's all these different sort of pathways, and there's different stepping stones to that, right? Like if you ask, my buddy John, who's a banker here in Denver, if an MBA is important, he'll tell you yes, right? For his business. You ask me, I'm going to say, maybe, probably not. It's just like, there's no right answers, right? But I think like developing out at least like the left side of that math equation for you personally, right? Like, what do I want? What do I need? Right? Like, let's start there. Where do I want to be? And like really sort of using those as filter mechanisms is going to help you get to the right thing.
The thing that I want to highlight that you just said that I think is so incredibly important is the military is like all consuming purpose. Like it's like a monolith of purpose, which is kind of cool in some sense. But then when you get out, a lot of people, I think at least I did this subconsciously, went, well, the military was my job. So if I just get a job that has the purpose too, then I can make this one to one swap. And that's impossible. Like you just said, your job is only a part of this stack of things that create your overall life purpose. And I think that that's something that a lot of people need to hear, because it's really easy to just view the military as a job, but it's also not a job, it's a lifestyle. And
It's your identity, right? Like your entire identity. And I think that's the thing, right? Is like figuring out how to say like, look, I am Dan, and there's a lot of things that like make up Dan. And like being a veteran is part of it, being a former Palantir person is part of it, being a dad is part of it. Like, but you also have some agency in saying like what makes that up, right? And I think that's the thing that we don't necessarily think about or talk about in the military, because it's like, I am Captain Rickard in 4th Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group. It's like everything is very linearly set for who you are and who you are, like who your identity is, right?
very much so. And so when you say that you have a choice in how you set this kind of priority stack, what do you think is important to how do you ground the different portions of your identity so that they aren't shaken as you move? Because as you said very wisely, life is full of transitions, so things are constantly changing. And so what are you grounding your identity in so that these transitions aren't like catastrophic shifts in your identity over and over and over again?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. Look, I just think like, uh, I understand what's important to me. And these are like when you make a sort of shift, it's like staying true to what you believe, right? Like, and the reality is like, look, there are folks out there that may say, hey, I want to get out and I'm going to go, in another way of service, right? I'm going to go to the agency or FBI or police force or whatever. And those are also like jobs that sort of become your identity, right? for me, I chose not to go that direction, right? Um, like I have things that are important to me. My job is one of those things, but it's not like the all defining thing, right? I don't know if I really answered your question there, but
My question is very out there, so it's kind of hard to. It's very dependent on the person. My opinion on it is there's a certain set of values that are generally unchanging as you go through life. There are things that rarely change, and then there's things that change a lot. So like your job changes a lot. If your identity's grounded in that, that's a bad move. Your family, not so much. Or if you're religious, that's not changing. So like that's kind of the way that I view it. And I was just curious what your thoughts are on that.